Hi everybody. I think I'm live. I think I see people joining. And hopefully you can see and hear me. And I'm keeping an eye on the chat now because we are going to have Chasten joining us momentarily. Oh, thank you so much. Sounds like, okay, so it sounds like video and audio are working. Hey,
We did it.
we
Okay.
did it. Amazing.
It happened.
It's like every single time you go in not knowing if both are going to work, if one is going to work, but not the other.
Here we
So
are.
it's just like a miracle every time.
I had to scramble to create a background because our apartment is so small that there's really no background. So I moved this bookshelf magically out from the wall to pretend like I have a larger library than I do.
I love it. It's beautiful. Mine is like, I think mine's a plain wall. I think that's what's visible.
Have you been
If I were to
capitals?
tilt up a little bit, you'd see some pictures hanging. But um,
I feel like you
yeah.
can't. I tried to purposely put your books
Oh,
front and center. So I'm gonna move. No, now they're upside down. Hold on. Okay. There. I want everyone to know how much I love
I
you.
could try to like bounce it on my shoulder a little bit, but I'm just gonna hug it.
It's so good to
I'm just gonna.
see you.
It's so good to see you too. I'm so excited to do this, and I want to be mindful of the time too because I know that we want to make sure that we leave some time at the end for questions. But I have
Sure.
been so excited, especially because for people who are coming in, I actually got to interview you in Austin like a week after your launch, which was right before you debuted on the New York Times bestseller list, where you have been hanging out. So I want to know, how did it feel to get that news?
It's pretty remarkable news to get, especially because so much of this book is about a young person who never thought that there was going to be much of a future in store for him. So, reflecting on the fact that that scared, closeted kid got to grow up and become this person and write this book, and then accolades on top of that are, those are humbling. But just the fact that the book exists to me is remarkable, and grateful for things that come after that.
I'm so like, it makes me so happy. Like, I'm really happy for you,
Thanks.
and I'm happy for this book also, which absolutely deserves it. But I'm so glad that this book exists, and also that it is making its way into the world so widely, and kind of landing with people who, um, it's just. I've said this before, but it is truly astonishing that a book like this exists. When I think back to, like, it would have been unimaginable to have a book like this growing up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you've written stories that I'm so grateful for as well, and I'm just glad that we're both now getting to experience a world where stories like this might be more common for our readers and for young people, and hopefully, the few stories that exist now get thousands of more friends on the shelves as we progress as authors and as a country.
Yeah. No, I love that. Also, it bears mentioning. So this is not your first New York Times bestseller, because let's see. So if I've got, you're right, 2020 is when the adult, like the original version of this memoir came out.
Yeah.
And what was it like adapting it? What made you want to adapt it for
Yeah,
teens?
I
Yeah.
gutted the book. I mean, I completely rewrote it. I joked with, my editor and team that we should just give it a new title because it's a completely different book. The first book had to accomplish a lot, in the world of politics, and
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to write a book I wish I could travel back in time and hand my younger self. I just really wanted to write the book that would be full of the stories and the lessons and the anecdotes and the humor that younger me could have used to feel more confident in himself and to handle things like homophobia, internalized homophobia, bullying. And even though there's a lot of that, hardship or trauma in there, there's also some really funny stuff in there. There's a lot in there about embracing your identity, embracing the things that make you quirky or different or unique. But we didn't have books like this when I was younger. And so I wanted it to just be that thing I know I could have used, and hopefully it's also really helpful for parents and teachers and people who might care for young people or teach young people, because it is really, I think, a great tool to have these vital conversations, not just for the LGBTQ community, but for any young person who's growing up in a country wondering whether they belong or whether it's okay to be different. So yeah, writing it was like, cut this, cut that, cut the, we don't want you to talk about all the, political nonsense. There's a little bit of it in there just because I guess that's how I'm widely known. But choosing all of these stories that I didn't get to include in the first book and going into some of these feelings and experiences, that was more exciting for me.
I just want to underline that too, what you said about this is like, this is a fun and funny book. There are for sure some serious things in there, but I cannot emphasize enough that this is a book by a theater kid. It just oozes with theater kid energy, which speaks to my heart. But it's just I don't know. I loved it. I related to a lot of it, and I was along for the ride for the rest of it. You know how I feel. I think it's a perfect memoir. You're back from book tour, so it looks like, are you done? Are you still kind of in and out?
Yeah, it's sort of like peppered in throughout the summer now. And the really cool thing is, more people have learned about the book, and that's allowing me to go to more places I think the book is really needed. So I'm going to Ohio Thursday, and then I'll be back in Florida next week. I'll be down in southern Florida outside of Miami in Coral Gables. And then I'll be in Memphis, Tennessee that weekend. So I'm excited for the opportunity to keep having these conversations because, everywhere we go, the conversations are great and valuable. And when I go to like Deep Red America or, Purple America, even my hometown where I was in northern Michigan, the conversations are just beautiful. The audience Q&A section, not only being able to have these types of conversations with people, but creating that community. I only get to be there for a couple hours, but I've seen parents become friends with other parents. Young people make friends with other young people like them. That's really cool. So I never thought that I would experience some of these things on book tour, and it's really remarkable.
I feel like I got to see that firsthand. It was incredibly moving being a part of the Q&A session after our panel in Austin. Yeah. We heard from a lot of educators, parents, and some of the teens themselves. We straight up had 13-year-olds coming up asking you incredible questions. And since it was in Texas, it felt like a lot of the people at our event were really grappling with the book bans and the anti-trans legislation in particular. Yeah. It was a whole whack-a-mole there. And then you went straight to Florida from there. Yeah. What has it been like to kind of go from city to city and have these really, it was really emotional. It was, it was intense in a good way.
Yeah, I really enjoy having these conversations, and I miss being in the classroom. I used to teach middle school, and so part of this book tour kind of feels like I'm back in the classroom having these important conversations with young people, but also their parents. Mm-hmm. Just watching young people grapple with especially in some of these red states, like the politics of today. And then the folks that we met when you were there in Texas, who were, some young people were like taking a break from protesting right down the street at the state capitol to come to the book event.
Oh,
And so that's
incredible,
also,
right?
yeah, that's
Yeah.
also been really inspiring. It's not that I'm meeting a bunch of young people who feel beaten down and scared. It's a bunch of young people who are doing a lot of the really important work on the ground, who don't recognize some of these adults in power who aren't using their privilege and their platforms for good. I like going. I like being that person in the room who can create community, create conversation, listen. So that's why I'm excited to keep doing it.
I mean, it was really incredible watching you kind of make those connections both during the Q&A and, kind of helping to connect people with like Equality Texas, with resources. I could see people finding each other, which is amazing to see. And how can people support that effort? How can people living in other areas of the country, or people who kind of are those adults with platforms and privilege, kind of lend support to, to the 13-year-olds standing up and asking the question in Texas?
Yeah. So, we can do little things like make sure that books can get in the hands of young people who need them. Mm-hmm. And GLSEN does a great job for educators. That's why on my website, chastenwrites.com, we're collecting donated books to give to teachers. They'll be able to access those books free of charge. We can do little things like this every day. But this Pride Month specifically, I've been asking allies to ask themselves whether or not they earned that title or they gave it to themselves. And I think this is a Pride Month to really think critically about what we're doing to benefit other people. More than just, buying a t-shirt or a sticker or, posting a meme on social media. We really have to ask ourselves, how am I being an active ally for a community that needs me? And so for some people, if you don't have a lot of time, but you do have money, cut a check. For folks who have, privilege, that's where I've been trying to use the majority of my book tour to talk to communities who need the help, uplift them, uplift their stories. Find different ways to use that, whether it's at school or in your workplace. Think about who maybe not even who's at the table, but who's not in the room. And do people every month out of the year, not just Pride Month, feel comfortable enough to be their full and authentic self in whatever space that you are a part of? So time, money, privilege is always the thing I'm telling folks. If you don't have a lot of time, but you got money, donate it. If you don't have a lot of money, but you might have some time, donate. There are so many young people too who need mentors in this country. There are probably organizations on the ground in some of the cities that folks are tuning in from right now who could use some help with mentoring or tutoring or volunteering in their center. But just think a little critically, like, what am I actually doing? And right now, I don't think, putting a sticker on your water bottle is enough. We have to find more ways to be actively engaged in a community that really needs our help. And for other folks who are sitting at home wondering, like, okay, maybe I don't have a lot of time and I don't have a lot of money, sometimes just being that voice of reason at the table is really helpful. I think many of us kind of know what it's like to maybe have a relative or a friend at the end of the table, maybe at Thanksgiving or a holiday, who might say something. And part of being an active ally is to speak up and say, hey, let me help you, let me help educate you on this issue, but also let me help you understand, more about the humanity of queer people.
I love that. I also think that combines very well too with like my soapbox. I feel like more than ever is just the reminder too that queer and ally are not mutually exclusive categories. So we are all allies, or we should all be doing our best to show that allyship. Even those of us who are a part of the community in some capacity.
Yeah. Can I say one more thing about that?
Yeah.
So I've been I really believe that it's easier to hold on, especially in times like this, when things feel more political fraught, like politically fraught
Mhm.
or divided. And I can talk a little bit about that too. It is so much easier to hold on when you have other people holding on to you. And so before you're thinking really critically about like the work that I'm doing or how I'm getting out in the street, um, make sure that you're showing up for the people in your life that really need you. And as allies or advocates, remember that we have to take care of ourselves too. I meet so many hardworking people, and you met some of them in Texas when you were there with me. They're so hard on themselves. You know, these parents who are like, I'm doing this and I'm doing this and I'm doing this, and I like, what can I do for my kid? And reminding some of these parents the fact that you love your kid unconditionally is a miracle. Not every kid gets that, right? But you could tell that, you know, that mom in particular I'm talking about that you met in Texas, nobody had reminded her of that. And so
Mhm. I know
she's,
exactly who you're thinking of, and
yeah,
like, what was so incredible too is that in addition to being there for her kid, kind of in that moment, and just asking the question she asked and kind of saying what she said and how she said it, like I'm sure there were so many people in that room who got something really powerful from that.
yeah.
Like just this mom fighting for them, fighting for someone like them, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, to see also to be a young person to see that like there are
Mhm.
adults in the room who are actually focused on the real work. And so much of this political nonsense right now about book bans and anti-LGBTQ bills and the transphobia and the homophobia that is permeating through, you know, our media ecosystem and especially here on social media. Um, that's being perpetuated by a really vocal minority. And it's important to remind people that outside of like the bots and whatever, like people who have way too much time on their hands to like sit in comment sections all day and be mad at the world, just remember that they're part of a really, really small minority of people. This country overwhelmingly supports LGBTQ equality. Not only, you know, Democrats, but the majority of Republicans support LGBTQ equality. And for some of the young people that you met in Texas, you could tell that they're focused on real issues. They're focused on things like gun violence and the fact that, you know, guns are the number one cause of death amongst young people in this country. And you have young people protesting at the state house or, you know, uh, activating, you know, kids in their school to stand up and do the right thing. Just remember that like in this season of what seems like more and more nastiness, that's just unfortunately some adults who are using their platforms to focus on hate rather than work.
Mhm.
And so hate is just such an easy thing to do. Like it requires no work, you know, to just be hateful and to use your platform to tweet mean things or to sit in a comment section all day and just be upset at the world. Remember that that doesn't require any work. So us allies or advocates are out there doing the real work, trying to protect people, keep them alive, and to do the necessary work that is required of us. Um, but we have to hold one another up too and remind one another why we're doing what we're doing. And when it seems crushingly loud or it just seems like the world is falling apart, remember that you have the power to just turn your phone off
Mhm.
and walk away. Don't you get to decide how much time and energy you give to other people who aren't taking things seriously, who are just focused on hate for sport.
I think that's perfectly said. Um, yeah. Okay. So I'm keeping an eye on the time because I know we probably have about 10 minutes left before
Oh no.
we take a couple of
Okay.
questions
All right.
from people who are in the chat. But I wanted to one thing I did want to ask about is a little bit, if you feel comfortable sharing about your coming out journey, because as you know, your very first coming out moment made me cry not once but twice. Yeah, is there anything kind of that you would feel okay sharing about that story?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really extensive story, and without giving away too much in the book, the thing I enjoy the most about sharing my coming out story is that, it was hard, and I ran away from home, and I thought I was going to lose everything. And my parents wound up calling me back. They called me home, and they didn't know anything about raising a gay kid, and we never talked about gay people. It was such a taboo subject, and I also assumed that they would hate me too. But my parents put my safety and my health above the opinions of other people. Whether it was in our 4-H groups or our church or our community. My dad was a very well-known local business owner, and I was terrified that he'd lose business and he would hate me for it because I would have embarrassed him. But they wanted me to come home, and they wanted to keep me alive. And there's so much about my parents' journey in this book about what it means to be a parent who loves your kid unconditionally, and cares about doing right by your kid, and not caring about what other people are going to say.
Which is like such a beautiful thing to have that book kind of that has so much about your experience as the kid, but knowing that you writing it are a parent as well, and kind of thinking as a parent of how we can make this easier for our own kids, like our actual kids who are running around our houses, and also, kind of collectively our kids, Gen Z, whoever's after that. I'm not sure what that generation's called, but this, the next one's up. Okay, so I have another question or two here that I want to ask, but before I do, I wanted to go ahead and have people in the chat go ahead and leave questions if you have any. We have there's that little question box, I think, underneath. It looks like the chat bubble kind of cover, but with the question mark in it. So now would be a good time to kind of think about your questions, drop them in there, and we will jump into those in just a bit. But I wanted to kind of, thinking about kind of your coming out journey and just, kind of queer public life. Like, what has that been like, specifically navigating public life as a queer person, kind of with everything that comes with that, the scrutiny, the community aspects of it. What has that been like? And also, is there anything about that would have been particularly surprising to your teen self?
Oh yeah, I mean, we just didn't have it when I was younger. I didn't have any role models. It wasn't until I was in middle school that we had Will and Grace and Ellen DeGeneres, and now going back to my hometown in Northern Michigan, it's so different. But just seeing like happy gay families, or people who weren't afraid to be their most authentic self, and that's what I want to remind people this Pride Month too. Is like, when you are facing a vocal minority that is so focused on hate and division and nastiness, do not let them rob you of your joy, because you're the majority. The majority of Americans support LGBTQ equality, and that's the thing that you need to remember. Do not let these people rob you of your joy. If it is safe to do so, hold the hand of the person that you love. The ripple effects of that, can you imagine what that would have been like when we were younger, to just see people living openly and authentically, and most importantly, being happy. That's the thing that I love about my love. I'm happy. I was that scared, closeted kid in Northern Michigan who did not think he was going to make it. And somehow I grew up and got to become this person. And I never thought I would ever get to be married. I never thought I would get to be a dad. I never thought that I would get to do big, important things in the world. And I love, and I'm so grateful for getting to be this person. And so when the world seems loud and the politics are messy, I just lean on my happiness. I love walking my kids to the grocery store. I love holding my husband's hand when we're going to get ice cream on a date night. I love playing with my kids on the playground and not being afraid to ask my other kid where Papa is, and using Papa and Dada at the playground and not worrying about whether, people are going to raise an eyebrow because we're a same-sex family. I love my happiness, and I want every queer person, not just in Pride Month, but every day, to lean into your happiness. The fact that you are here, the fact that you exist, the fact that you made it. I know pride calls us to action, but pride is also just a celebration of our existence. And I certainly never thought that there was a while I never thought that I was going to make it to today. And the fact that I did reminds me every Pride Month to just celebrate the fact that I'm here. And I love being happy. And I want everyone to just remember that happiness can truly ripple throughout your community and the world. If you are not afraid to be yourself when you share yourself with the world, openly and authentically, it helps other people, crack open the closet door or feel affirmed in their identity. Or, we were talking a little bit about active allyship, but like the visibility, we're talking about being active allies and like what more can we do? But also the existence of a pride flag in some places, especially in rural America, life-changing. I never saw them, you know?
Yep.
And imagine what it would be like to just be a young trans person in this country and then see that flag or that small symbol of support, to know that there are other people out there that support you and love you and they want you to thrive. They want you to stick around because they want you to experience that happiness as well.
It reminds me of I think it was a teacher, an educator at our event who kind of, had that sticker, just made sure that sticker was visible to students who just needed that reminder. And it felt, I think kind of that educator is worried that it wasn't enough, but I really think that's so huge,
Yeah.
especially in certain places. It's such a big deal.
Yeah, absolutely. We can do lots of little things that add up, right?
Mm-hmm.
But not allowing people to steal your happiness is actually a pretty darn big thing.
That is a big one. Okay, I'm opening up the questions here. Oh, we have so many good ones. Oh, you guys are amazing. Okay.
By the way, I hope you can hear Buddy just snoring, my dog.
Oh.
He's laying right behind the cat and just sawing logs back there. Not a care in the world.
Let's see. Oh, there's so many. I'm going to try to get through as many of these as I can. And let me see. Is there a way to, if I tap on it, will it like, oh yeah, okay. So here's one. So some time ago, it was rare to see queer books being published. What do you think is special about queer books?
Well, books offer us windows and mirrors, right? They either offer us a window to look through and to look into someone else's life or experience and learn things about the world and ourselves through other people's stories, or they offer us a mirror so we get to see our own life reflected back to us. And so my hope is that my book can be both. For teachers, adults, and other students, it can be a window into someone else's story and life and a conversation starter about what we can do as allies. And for other young queer people, hopefully it's a helpful mirror. Someone has been there, someone has been through it, and someone sort of made it to the other side enough to say it does get better, even when that sounds like bologna sandwiches. Here's how it can get better, and here's how other people can make it better. And just the existence of books about queer characters is still surprising to me. Like when I just went to a bookstore this morning to sign some books, like to see a pride display of like a ton of different options of books that never existed when I was younger. Just what that would have done for me as a young person, to know that it not only was okay, but that there were so many different avenues for me to to explore and read and like to see my humanity reflected on the page. So the other thing I've just been saying is like, I don't want my book to be the only one. I want there to be 1,000 other, queer memoirs so that hopefully more people can see themselves reflected in somebody else's story and learn from their experiences as well.
Oh my gosh, we have so many good ones. Okay. Oh, I love this one from one of my favorite people. This is from Savvy. How can the LGBTQ community stop infighting and band together?
Conversation, dialogue. I know it's easier said than done, but especially a lot of like white gay men need to learn that you walk through the world with a little bit more privilege than other people. And one of the best things that you can do is, instead of jumping into commentary, you can give yourself the chance to learn and unlearn things. Because like growing up in northern Michigan, also as a gay man, like I never met a trans person. Mm-hmm. And I believe that we are here today as a community because of the activism of trans people. And you owe people, by the way, not from a long, long time ago, recent history, that people were putting their lives on the line for your benefit as well. And I think as a community, you got to think about what it means to care for the other people in your own community. And learning and unlearning is a great way to be a better ally, even within your own community. So, instead of piling on or jumping into the online debate, maybe you can do some research, read a book, read a couple books, get your questions answered. And then, I feel like one of the best ways that I've become a better advocate and ally is allowing people to help me be a better ally by correcting me, calling me out, sharing new information with me. And instead of getting defensive, it's so easy to get defensive because we want to get it right, but sometimes you don't. And when someone tells you, hey, here's something that you could do better, instead of getting defensive about that, I try to view it as a gift. Someone is saying, like, I'm not giving up on you because I know that you want to be a better ally. And I know that you care and want to show up, and here are ways that you can do it differently. And that's truly a gift. And I think that we should want that from other people, especially in our own community. Because, like I said, it's easier to hold on to what other people are holding on to. And right now we got to hold on to, people in our own community.
I love that. I mean, I think that's so important. And I also, another thing to add on to that is the reminder for all of us that it's okay if somebody has an experience that you don't personally understand. For example, like cis people will likely not understand every nuance of what it feels like to be trans. That's okay. Educate yourself. Read those books, watch those content creators on YouTube, kind of get that information as best you can. You're still not going to perfectly understand everything probably, but you will be hearing directly from communities of people who are talking about kind of how you can best support them, which is not static. Like keep engaging because that can be very context driven and changes over time. But it's okay if somebody else in the community under the umbrella has a very different experience from you. We can catch up and figure out how to support each other no matter what.
Yeah. Also, other people being happy shouldn't it won't hurt your happiness.
That is true. Let's see. I've got okay. We have there's so many great ones.
I'll try to be faster. Sorry.
No. I'm like, let's see. I'm also like bad at choosing because they're all good. How about this one? How can teachers, babysitters, and friends help support queer kids in their lives safely?
Yeah, instead of giving like the long form answer to this, it's not necessarily always about saying like, it's okay to be LGBTQ, I will love you. I think parents should have that conversation. I think so many of our lives could have been different had our parents just sat us down and said, by the way, love you unconditionally, whether you're gay, straight, bi, trans, whether you want to be a football player, a dancer, a mathematician, we love you unconditionally. We're not going anywhere. But, we didn't have those types of conversations. Sometimes it's just as simple as like leading by example, showing other people that you do care about everybody and that you take everyone's, opinion seriously and their existence seriously. And don't be surprised if like it takes a while for your students to warm up to the idea that you're an ally, because so much of navigating the ideas of sharing your authenticity with other people is, navigating that fear that like, what if they actually aren't an ally? What if they don't like me? What if I can't be my truest self? But reminding people that they are allowed to be their authentic self and they are allowed to, especially as a parent, like you will love them unconditionally is really powerful. And after that, you don't always have to be like, all your silverware, your cutlery doesn't need to be rainbow themed and the towels don't have to have rainbows on them. Because, teenagers also just want to like move on with their life, especially some of the young people I've been talking to. Like, it's not as big of a deal as it was, when we were teenagers. And frankly, they're like really surprised that people care so much. And so just reminding people in your life that you love them unconditionally. And I think often like we just don't talk about our feelings enough with one another. Like even the people I love so much, having like a true check-in with your friends saying like, by the way, I think you're crushing it and I really love you and I always want to be here for you if you ever need me. Those things are really powerful because we don't often do that kind of stuff.
Let's see. Yeah. Oh, here's one. Okay. This is like a great dad kind of question.
Oh my gosh.
Loved your book. Any preschool level books to recommend for this conversation, or even younger than preschool?
Oh man, I'm not well versed in this. And frankly, I know I have some on our bookshelf in the nursery because people have sent them to us. Right now, Gus and Penelope are just obsessed with the trains, trucks, and Goodnight Moon. We haven't really like gotten into a lot of these books. Something I have noticed with a lot of books, like there aren't a lot about like two dads or two moms or families that look different, where the book isn't about like their family being different. If anyone has suggestions, please drop them in the comments. I know I just picked up one at the bookstore the other day that they recommended. We haven't gotten to read it yet, and it's something about bathing the cat. Have you heard about this one?
I've not.
If somebody knows the title of that, will you drop it in the comments? But the bookstores have been so fantastic. Like the couple times I've gone in and said like, I just want a book about like two dads or a queer family, and the book is not about how we're different or like that's okay. Like they're just doing a thing. And someone recommended this book. It was about like giving the cat a bath, and there just happens to be two dads.
Yeah, I love, and like I'm realizing too, I'm like completely out of date with what's coming out for preschool age kids, because my kids are like so old now. But echoing that, booksellers and librarians know this stuff, and so that is libraries and indie bookstores. You will get
Oh, Bathe the Cat. There it is. Bathe the Cat by Alice McGinty.
I like the idea of bathing my cat. Sounds terrifying, and I'm instantly intrigued. So, right. I think we have time for maybe one more.
Okay.
Let's see.
While you're pulling up the question, I'll just say so you don't run out of time. Folks can find me at chastenwrites.com. We're going to be adding a really cool virtual event here in the next couple of weeks, so hopefully more time to connect with people all over the country and answer more questions like that. I love doing stuff like this. So follow along, more events popping up, and hopefully I'll see you soon in your city. Okay, what's the question?
Okay, I want to end on this side. I feel like this one's just so pressing right now. And it's such a beautifully worded question too. Chasten, how can we make this world a better place for trans people?
Yeah, I know Drew. Hi, Drew.
Hello.
There are so many. This is a big question. because there's so many things that we need people to do.
Mhm.
We need people in positions of power to take their jobs seriously. And I believe that if you are in elected office and you have the ability to pass legislation or make people's lives better or safer, you should take that responsibility seriously. And when some of these people are faced with the data that unfortunately young trans people, when 1 in 2 trans people will contemplate taking their life in this country, that is a data fact that should scare you into action. But they don't take that seriously. And that work is not just on you, Drew. And that work is not just on trans people. It's especially on allies. You know, I believe the data is that trans people are about less than 1% of the American population. And unfortunately, people in positions of power have decided that trans youth are enemy number one. And that's because hate is just so much easier. It's so much easier than work. They have found a topic, and they've acknowledged this. They threw everything at the wall. They wanted to see what would stick. Right now, it's attacking young trans people. And the work of calling that out should not be on the trans community. That should be on people, especially allies, to remind them of what their job is actually for. Let me pivot to something. I know we're running out of time. There's a place here in DC that I really appreciate called As You Are. It's an inclusive queer space. It's a coffee shop. They have the best chicken tenders I've ever had in my life. You can get a drink there with your friends. You can play board games. You can do whatever. But the space is designed so that people can exist safely, happily, and do whatever they want. Whether you want to go to the dance floor, or you just want to play a board game, like me with my friends on Friday night. We need places like that all around the country. And making sure that people know that it is okay to be themselves, their truest self, whether it's in your business, you know, your restaurant, your bookstore, your classroom, that is active allyship. Making sure that people know it is okay to be themselves. And I've seen it going to As You Are, where people kind of come in the door and they look around and wonder, like, can I truly be myself here? And I think that is so important and powerful. And so making the world a better place really is a collection of smaller things that all add up into something bigger. And
I don't know if we might have gone over time and we've become muted, or are you just unmuted? I can hear
can
you
you
now.
hear me?
Now I can. I lost you for a second.
Oh, my screen time alert went off. It said I've been on Instagram too long today.
That's not fair. This doesn't count.
Yeah, so that's a great thing. You guys should set y'all should set screen time alerts. Anyway, all these little actions add up into something much bigger. Have conversations with your kids. Remind them that you love them unconditionally. Put up those safe space stickers. So what if people on the internet want to make fun of them? That'll change and save somebody's life. Make sure that everyone who comes into your office or your restaurant or your library or your bookstore or your coffee shop know that it is okay to be themselves there and what you support. Find local organizations in your community who need your help. Donate books to programs like Glisten or PFLAG. That's what we're doing on my website. Do little things that are actively engaged in being an ally. Especially if you know a trans person in your life, it's always good to just reach out and connect. And or any queer person in your life, it's great to do this for everybody, but remind people that they're loved. It's a weird season out there right now, and just remind people that you care about them, and that you will fight for them and you want to do right by them. And other than that, I'll see you out in the streets. You know, you will always have a friend and an ally in me. Hopefully I get to see you in your community on a book tour stop this summer. Just remember that there are millions of people out here supporting you. Millions of people. The majority of the American population supports LGBTQ equality. Never forget that, and do not let people rob you of that joy.
I love that. Thank you so much. This flew by. So I think before we say goodbye, I just want to give one more reminder. Get this book, y'all.
I appreciate you. Thanks for taking the time. Happy Pride.
Happy Pride.
Enjoy the rest of your day, and thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in.
Yeah. Thank you all so much. So good to see you. Bye.
See ya.